Do you have bad neighbors? Some people do. Their neighbors have all-night parties, block the driveway, neglect their homes, make constant noise, or have bad taste in Christmas decorations. However, if you have excellent communication skills or you are a people person, you just might solve this. But what to do if the house is the one giving you problems and there are no owners around? What to do? This is precisely what happened to this neighborhood in a small Madagascar village. It all started with an unusual smell that would come and go. Then, the scent was present 24/7. It was so bad that people were thinking about abandoning the village. They called in the professionals who discovered something that no one expected to see. Read on to see what almost made people leave their homes. Everything was as usual in this small village until one day a strange smell appeared. At first, people believed that the wind brought something from the sea and that it would be gone in one day. However, the smell was determined to stay. So, now the villagers had to determine what the smell was. Moreover, they had to discover from where did the smell come from. In just one day, everyone in the village could smell it. The smell was so strong that it was unbearable to breathe. Still, they couldn't figure out where the scent was coming from. However, they knew one thing for sure. It was suffocating the entire area. Every next day would be worse than the previous one. They had to do something. As the smell got worse and worse, it became clear that everyone needed to work together and discover what the issue was. Moreover, they had to work together to locate where the issue was. It was crucial to figure out where the smell was coming from. However, not even teamwork could prepare them for what was coming. After some time, good organization, and proper investigation, they managed to pinpoint where the smell was coming from. The island already had a few abandoned houses that no one ever came to visit. It was discovered that one house was to blame. Wait, can a small house smell that bad? It turns out that it can. So what was the real issue? The definition of an abandoned house is clear: no one lives there or visits it. However, that wasn't the case with this abandoned house. Everyone believed that this specific house was empty. However, they started seeing people coming and going from the house. Everyone was in shock. They simply couldn't believe that anyone would even step inside the house, let alone live there. What was inside that house? Surprisingly, in just a few days, the smell was gone entirely. As it often happens, the entire neighborhood went on their regular daily activities. Just when everyone thought the nightmare was over, the hell was just beginning. The smell came back even worse. In no time, the entire neighborhood was on their feet. They knew that this time something had to be done, so they called an emergency meeting where they talked about concrete action moves. At this point, everyone could agree that the horrible smell was coming from a specific house. Moreover, it was the same house as the last one. However, they knew that they weren't allowed to investigate on their own, so they did the only right thing. They called the police. At first, they weren't sure just how serious their call might sound to the police. Still, they knew that something had to be done. They told the police that they had a problem and that the smell was starting to concern them. Typically, the police send a crew to investigate. Maybe there was a body that started decomposing. The police did their job. They did their duty talking with the neighbors and decided to investigate the house. Even some neighbors helped them to investigate the property. No one knew for sure what was inside the house, so they called a few people with them to help if needed. Their crew included some experts who weren't from the police force. Since they had no idea what might be inside the house, the police called in some experts. The team of specialists included a wildlife expert and a medical examiner. One of the members of the wildlife committee was Sori Randrian Jefesanaka. She was called as an expert to investigate the house. Randrian Jefesanaka was the head of the agency, and when she heard about the house, she knew what needed to be done. There was something unusual here, and she wanted to investigate the place personally. Moreover, the troubled house was in her area. She had no idea what could be inside the house. However, she wasn't too surprised once they discovered what was causing the smell. The suspicious house was located in the city of Toliara. Toliara is a place located in the southwest corner of Madagascar. The town is known as a beautiful and peaceful place, without troublesome people or any crime rate. So at the time, no one could even suspect that the house was a place of real trouble. Randrian Jefesanaka was called in case they find anything animal-related. After all, Toliara is located on the island, and there is a huge balance between the human world and nature. It comes as no surprise that the city had the environmental agency that has been established for a very long time. The agency had a rich experience with craziest animal-related situations. Still, were they needed here? The environmental agency had experience in dealing with kittens to enormous predators. That's why the police always called them. At the time, the police had no idea if they were needed in this situation or not. Still, they were about to enter the house. Upon arrival, it was clear that the house was smelly. While they were standing there, no one could guess what the smell was. They just knew that it was terrible. On the outside, the house looked like any other ordinary house. It was large, average, but with a massive secret inside its walls. It was creepy how silent everything around the house was, so they decided to step inside. At the time, they had no idea that the interior of the house would leave them speechless. As soon as the experts and police entered the house, they became lightheaded. The smell was so strong. Still, they had no choice but to keep moving. They had to move deeper inside the house to discover what the source was. At one moment, Randrian Jafasanaka said that she thinks the house is full of animal waste. Randrian Jafasanaka was sure that the smell was animal-related. She knew that only animals trapped inside could make such a stench. Shockingly, at the moment, she couldn't rule out that there may be people in the house. However, it looked as if nobody could be living there, or even more in such conditions. Or could it be the final truth was just one step ahead? As they made their way through the smelly house, suddenly they heard some noise. The sound wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to listen to it. They weren't alone. At the time, they were sure that other people were inside as well. Finally, two unfamiliar groups of people were looking at each other. The team saw that people had shovels in their hands. They were digging holes. The police asked them what they were doing, and they started acting strangely. It was clear that they were up to no good. The diggers looked like they were trying to hide something. The police made a move toward them, and the diggers put their hands up in the air immediately. They were arrested and escorted to the police car. The team knew that people were hiding something, so they decided to go deeper inside the house. At that moment, the floor started to move. Everything inside the house indicated that no one was there. The interior of the place was utterly destroyed. There was no light. Everything was covered in cobwebs, and the floor was moving. It took them a few minutes to realize what was under their feet. They were actually standing on top of animals. Almost the entire floor was covered in tortoises. They were packed in like sardines. Even Randrian Jafasanaka looked at the poor animals in disbelief. She was more in shock when she realized that these were no ordinary tortoises. It was hard to move with so many animals around, but they were sure the rest of the house had tortoises as well. Luckily, Randrian Jafasanaka knew what they needed to do. The first step was obvious. They had to move the tortoises out of the house as soon as possible and take them somewhere safe. These poor animals were so badly treated that she was afraid they wouldn't survive. At the time, Randrian Jafasanaka knew that these tortoises were rare. They were known as radiated tortoises. Moreover, they are rarely spotted in the wild, and Madagascar was home to only a few of them. These poor animals are so rare that criminals often poach them. Some people even eat them. Others own them as pets. However, holding them is against the law. Still underground, operations are enormous and include stealing tortoises and selling them. At this point, the species is almost extinct. There was a time when this species was thriving. However, in recent years, that changed drastically. In 2010, there were below 6 million of radiated tortoises left. Now, there are only around 3 million. In this abandoned house were over 9,000 of them. From home, the tortoises were taken to a safe place. Many of them were sick. Since they have found so many of them, Randrian Jafasanaka hoped that they could help to bring their population numbers up. Sadly, there was some bad news. As soon as they took tortoises to a safe place, the truth was out. It was discovered that many of these tortoises were severely ill. Most of them were very dehydrated. Although vets did all they couldn't save them all. Simply, it wasn't possible to work with over 9,000 tortoises. Many people have been arrested, caught, and charged for animal cruelty, but it continues to happen. People are driven by money, and they don't care about the well-being of these and other animals. Moreover, they rarely treat them with respect. Many people boycott the pet industry, but the animals are still being caught and sold illegally. Around 8,000 tortoises survived. The team wasn't sure they should release them back into the wild or place them into another facility. However, it turns out that the tortoises couldn't be released back into the wild since they spent so much time inside the house. Returning to the wild could be fatal to them. Finally, the tortoises remain together in one place. They are well taken care of. They have attention, food, water, and people excited to spend time with them. Now, the researchers are focusing on getting population numbers back up. On the other hand, the police is dealing with the people who smuggled them. It was discovered that people who hoarded these poor animals are not only criminals, but animal abusers as well. People wanted them to be punished. They were eventually punished for their crimes. This was also an excellent way to send a message to anyone who might be involved in such activities.